They called it a peasant fantasy, a mission so desperate that experienced commanders openly laughed. Public mockery. A group of untrained civilians against the most feared military machine in the world. But what awaited them wasn't fear. It wasn't surrender. It was a united people, steadfast, silent, and prepared for that moment, and a leader whose simple tactics would turn an unstoppable advance into a historical disaster. 1475. The Ottoman Empire marches north. An advanced and brutal military force that has already consumed empires. Wherever they advance, kingdoms crumble. Resisting isn't just unlikely. It's suicide. That winter, Sultan Mehmed, the very man who crushed Constantinople and broke the Byzantine Empire, sends a colossal force to the Principality of Moldavia, a small, strategic, and seemingly indefensible territory. The intention is clear: to open a direct path to Central Europe, to control trade routes, to establish absolute dominion over the region. Let's be clear about the scale we're talking about. The advancing Ottoman army isn't just a few hundred soldiers. They are estimated between 120,000 and 150,000 men. Some historians speak of even larger numbers: elite troops, janissaries, heavy cavalry, siege artillery, war engineers, supplies for months, veteran commanders who conquered fortresses that seemed untouchable. And on the other side, Moldavia has at best 40,000 men. But most are not professional soldiers. They're peasants, shepherds, merchants, men who've handled tools, not swords, for most of their lives. Their fortifications are modest, their weapons limited, their experience in large-scale battles virtually non-existent. The numbers don't lie: 3 Ottomans for every Moldavian. And they aren't just any 3 Ottomans. They are warriors trained since childhood, men who have seen blood, who know the iron discipline of the imperial army, who march under the banner of a sultan who has never accepted defeat. But they were about to make the most expensive mistake of their lives. When the empire's advisors looked at the map, they saw an obvious conclusion. Moldavia would be a 3-day stop, maybe a week, if there was stubborn resistance. But real resistance? Impossible. And this is where the man everyone underestimated comes in. Stefan cel Mare, Stephen the Great, a 32-year-old Moldavian leader with a track record of unlikely victories. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compares to what he's about to face. Stefan doesn't command from a safe distance. He fights alongside his men. He knows every hill, river, and trail of the territory. Not from maps, but because he grew up there. When the Ottomans declared their march, Stefan didn't gather a larger army, nor did he ask for reinforcements or build fortresses. He decided to use the territory itself as a weapon. Ottoman commanders scoffed at the strategy. They'd already won in mountains, deserts, and swamps, but they missed a crucial difference: difficult terrain, and terrain weaponized aren't the same thing. In the months leading up to the invasion, while Ottoman strategists studied maps in marble palaces, Stefan and his people were studying something much more dangerous: the Moldavian winter. The dense forests, the narrow valleys, the rivers that freeze in unpredictable ways. And then the preparation began. Not the construction of walls, not the forging of thousands of swords, but something much more subtle, much more cruel. Bridges were partially destroyed. Not completely, because that would be obvious. Just weakened. Enough to bear the weight of a few men, but to collapse under the pressure of hundreds. Trees were strategically cut in the forests surrounding the valleys, not to clear the path, but to create natural blockades, to force the enemy army to move along specific routes that seemed safe, but which were actually traps. Wells were poisoned, barns were emptied. Entire villages were evacuated, and everything that could serve as food or shelter was burned, a scorched earth strategy. Brutal, but effective. If the Ottomans wanted to advance, they'd do so without food, without shelter, without clean water. And most importantly, small cannons mounted on sleds were hidden in the forests. Mobile, silent, capable of firing without revealing their exact position. Archers were positioned on snow-covered slopes, where their white clothes made them practically invisible. Every hill, every river crossing, every breath of fog, Everything was shaped for this moment. But the Ottomans knew none of this. To them, Moldavia was just another target, just another flag to plant, just another territory to absorb into the relentlessly growing empire. What they didn't know is that they were marching directly into the slaughterhouse. January 1475. The Ottoman army crosses the border. At first, everything confirms their confidence. No direct resistance, no pitched battles. The Moldavians retreat constantly. They seem to be fleeing, and this only feeds Ottoman certainty. Of course they're fleeing. What else would they do? But as the Ottomans advance, something begins to change. The roads get narrower. The forests get denser. The bridges begin to give way. Not all at once, just enough to cause delays. Confusion, frustration. And then, the food starts to run out. Ottoman soldiers, accustomed to looting villages to replenish supplies, find only ashes, empty villages, burned barns, no peasants to capture, no grain to steal. The snow begins to fall. Not a light dusting, but a Moldavian storm. The kind of cold that freezes fingers in minutes. That turns simple walking into a battle against your own body. Now the Ottoman army is trapped in a narrow valley. The forests on either side are too dense to maneuver. The path ahead is the only option, and that's exactly where Stefan wants them. The trap is set. All that remains is for the enemy to fall into it. Numbers only matter if you can use them. In a narrow valley, surrounded by forests and snow, 120,000 men aren't an advantage. They're a logistical nightmare. The Ottomans advanced confidently. But the land, used by those who know it, can be deadlier than any army. Stefan chose a place where numbers don't matter and military experience becomes a disadvantage. But the real trump card wasn't just the location. It was what was happening inside it. The region chosen for the clash was a narrow valley, surrounded by steep hills covered in dense forest. In winter, the temperature plummeted. Heavy snow accumulated in layers. And there was something else. Something the locals knew well, but was invisible to outsiders until it was too late. Fog. Not ordinary fog. A thick, icy mist that descended from the mountains at dawn and completely swallowed the valley. Visibility? 3 meters, maybe less. Soldiers trained for organized combat became blind, disoriented, unable to tell friend from foe. For the Empire, it was an obstacle. For the peasants, it was routine. They had grown up in that valley. They knew every trail, every stone, every curve of the terrain, even without seeing an inch in front of their noses. The fog didn't scare them, it protected them. And more than that, it leveled the playing field in a way no fortification ever could. For the Imperial soldier trained in open fields, the valley was hell. Trapped in snow, blinded by fog, formations crumbling, orders lost in the freezing air. Then a sound, an arrow. The terrain turned the most powerful army in the world into disoriented targets. But terrain alone doesn't win wars. Stefan knew his enemy. Large armies depend on organization and communication. Take that away, and chaos remains. First, he divided his small forces into even smaller groups. Groups that knew the terrain perfectly, that could move in silence, even in the dark, even in the densest fog. Each group received a specific position along the valley, hidden in the trees, behind rocks, on elevations that offered a privileged view when the mist lifted momentarily. Then, he did something no traditional military commander would do. He rejected direct confrontation entirely. No heroic charge, no pitched battle, no attempt to face the Empire head-to-head. Instead, he would turn that valley into a living trap. Cannons on sleds were positioned in the blind spots of the forest, ready to fire and relocate instantly. Arrows were prepared by the thousands. Improvised barricades blocked the valley exits, but subtly, disguised to look accidental, like fallen trees or snowdrifts. Everything was ready. And then came the masterstroke. He'd let the Empire advance. The deeper they went, the harder retreat became, and the more vulnerable they'd be. When fog descended at dawn, when Imperial soldiers were scattered, exhausted, separated from commanders by dense mist and rugged terrain, the trap would spring. Not all at once. Not a massive, obvious attack. But rapid, precise strikes from all directions simultaneously. Arrows from nowhere. Cannons from invisible positions. Small groups emerging from the mist, attacking, vanishing before any organized response was possible. The goal wasn't to destroy the Ottoman army in direct combat. It was to break their morale, sow confusion, turn their confident march into a claustrophobic nightmare where every shadow could be death. The plan worked. The empire underestimated, seeing it as intimidation theater, not real war. When first reports arrived, disbelief turned to panic, too late. By the time they realized the trap, it was too late. Valley exits blocked. Fog made coordinated retreat impossible. Every attempt to form defensive lines shattered from angles they didn't even know existed. Arrogance blinded them. Every step deeper into the nightmare. When fog revealed the trap, confusion became panic. The peasants fought like hunters. The empire was prey. The trap snapped shut. The first Ottoman column entered at dawn, thousands of janissaries and heavy cavalry in perfect formation. Confident they faced only peasants. On the slopes above, hidden among snow-covered pines, Moldavian soldiers waited. Motionless. Silent. Every man knew his position. Every cannon positioned during the night, mounted on sleds, moved without sound, aimed at specific valley points below. No room for error, no second chance. Stefan watched from a high vantage point, eyes fixed on the advancing column. He didn't move, didn't give orders. Not yet. Everything depended on timing, patience, waiting until the enemy was exactly where he needed them. Snow fell heavier. Not a violent storm, but a constant veil reducing visibility. Ottoman commanders shouted orders, keep formation tight. They couldn't see the slopes clearly. Couldn't see the hidden men. Couldn't see that every step led deeper into the trap. The stage was set for the massacre. When the column was fully committed, when retreat was impossible, when narrow slopes squeezed them from both sides, Stefan raised his hand. A single gesture. The valley exploded. Cannons fired first, not random bombardment, but precise coordinated shots tearing through Ottoman formation at its most vulnerable points. Iron balls shattered rows of soldiers, creating instant gaps. Sound ricocheted off valley walls, amplified, deafening. Before Ottomans could react, Moldavian infantry emerged from the trees. Not a disorganized mass-calculated wave striking specific formation points, exploiting artillery-created gaps, using terrain to erase numerical advantage. Ottomans tried defensive squares, battle-tested tactics. Terrain wouldn't allow it. Slopes too steep. Snow too deep. Visibility too limited. They were fighting blind. Then Moldavian cavalry attacked from the flanks, not heavy knights, but light horsemen who knew every inch of ground. They surged from sidewoods, galloping trails only they knew, hitting Ottoman rear at points commanders thought impossible to reach. Ottoman soldiers found themselves crushed. Moldavian infantry attacking front while cavalry hammered flanks. Cannons firing from constantly shifting positions, impossible to locate, impossible to silence. And the terrain. Always the terrain. Denying space to maneuver, regroup, use numbers supposed to guarantee victory. Ottoman commander shouted retreat orders. Retreat where? Narrow passages they'd used to enter were blocked by their own dead and wounded. Snow made every step a battle. Moldavians kept pressing, knowing every stone, every tree, every slope. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Ottomans finally realized they'd been manipulated. Early weak resistance was theater, every step choreographed. Midday light revealed the defeat's extent. Thousands of Ottoman soldiers dead in the snow. Thousands more surrendered. Weapons piled at feet of Moldavian peasants whose tactics they'd mocked. The perfect formation that entered the valley in morning was now wreckage scattered across miles of blood-stained ground. Stefan surveyed the field. No smiles, just proof that knowledge beat numbers. Constantinople, stunned silence. Ottoman invincibility evaporated in Vaslui snows, Europe learned. Brute force doesn't always win. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is the earth beneath your feet. Stefan didn't live to see the full impact. He died years later fighting another battle, defending the same land he'd protected so brilliantly. But his legacy endured. Military academies across Europe eventually studied Vaslui. Commanders learned its lessons. The idea that a clever defender with deep terrain knowledge could defeat a much larger invader became accepted doctrine. The battle saved Moldavia. More importantly, it saved the route to Central Europe from the Ottoman advance at that critical moment. It changed strategic calculations for generations. And it all started because one man refused to accept that his origin determined his destiny. The lesson is clear. Being underestimated is an advantage. While the enemy assumes victory, you study. Stefan didn't have resources, but he knew where he fought, and that prevailed. There are dozens of stories like this. Want to understand how intelligence beats brute force? Subscribe to discover strategies that changed history. Next video. Another impossible moment. Because it's not about army size, but how well you know the terrain.